This is Morgan Hazelwood, back again with more writing tips and writerly musings. Today I'm here to share with you Down the Rabbit Hole, the appeal of portal fantasy. Now, portal fantasy has always been popular, from fairy circles to Narnia. We've always enjoyed watching people from familiar places enter fantastic realms. At the titular panel at Worldcon 2019, Seanan McGuire, Vina Prasad, Genevieve Cogman, and Kathryn Sullivan discussed what it was about portal fantasy that kept people coming back for more. Before we begin, we need to really talk about what is portal fantasy. I mentioned a little, but in a portal fantasy, the main character is transported from our world into another. This allows us to see the new world through the eyes of someone with our context. Note, the Japanese version is called Isaki. I-S-A-K-I. I may have butchered the pronunciation there. In portal fantasy, usually the protagonist is either young and or dissatisfied with their life and looking for an escape. But the portal to go home has to be hard to reach. If it's like hitting a button, it's just a story about someone who lives in 2 or more worlds. But aren't portal fantasies just fairy tales, some might ask? Well, while fairy tales are a subset of folklore, in those you know where the portal is and how to access it. And you typically choose to go there, or at least choose to risk getting taken there. In portal fantasy, you just stumble in and you have to figure out the rules as you go along. So, most of us were introduced to portal fantasy as children, and we asked the panelists what their favorite early memories of portal fantasies were. Most of the 80s cartoons were portal fantasies. My Little Pony, Starbright, the Care Bears. There were a lot. Doctor Who, obviously. Wizard of Oz, pretty famous there. Digimon, Narnia, our own daydreams can be portal fantasies. John Carter of Mars, Irish mythology, and Dante's Inferno. All of these are portal fantasies, or at least pseudo portal fantasies. They've been around for a long time. It's a concept that has always intrigued. So we asked the panelists what some favorite portal fantasy tropes were. For one of them, it was when the main character tries to introduce something they know from back home that seems so obvious to make things better, and they find out why people in this other realm weren't doing it that way already. There's the repercussions. Another trope that's enjoyed in portal fantasy is the fact that the kids who go through the portal are never the cool and the popular kids. It's the weird kids. And whatever is the thing that makes them weird is the reason they succeed in the portal world. Although, actually, I saw a zombie movie a couple weeks ago that this would apply to. But anyway, what makes you weird is what helps you live and thrive. So now let's talk about what is the appeal of portal fantasy for readers. Or watchers, I guess, if we're talking about other forms of media. First off, most obviously, is wish fulfillment. One day, as a kid, you woke up and you realized you were never going to become a unicorn space princess. But maybe if you could find the right door, you could go somewhere and find unicorn space princesses. Another appeal of portal fantasy is being the one with the answers. Usually, people in portal fantasies are ignored, or they're kids and nobody listens to them, or whatever. But when they go to this portal fantasy world, they go knowing so much about our world and technology and what mechanics there are, or at least the possibilities. And they can actually change societies and whole worlds with this knowledge. The third kind of reason people might really enjoy portal fantasy is different expectations. In a fantasy world, they could value something that in our world is seen as a detriment or as just something nobody cares about. But in this fantasy world, it's valued and sought after. And finally, one reason people enjoy portal fantasies is it teaches us the value of home, of appreciating what you already have. Now, sometimes home sucks and you're better off elsewhere. But for most of us, being reminded to look at what we have helps us see, with all our issues and struggles, that it's not so bad. Are you a fan of portal fantasies? What are your favorite portal fantasies? And tell me about who gets them right and what do people do wrong in portal fantasies. And that's all for today. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, hit that subscribe button and share it with all your friends. It goes a long way towards helping people find me. And I'll be back again next Monday with more writing tips and writerly musings. Bye-bye.